Hello. So in this video, we're going to take a look at module 56, which is all about long run costs. And then there's a little bit of questions in here about what are called sunk costs as well. So there's that one additional concept. So the first problem is a check your understanding problem. And in this one, it says, imagine you've got basically a table where you've got three different choices, right? Three different plant sizes. With three different fixed costs and three different variable costs on average for the production. And it says that the variable cost isn't going to vary like within a choice. And so for each of these three choices, calculate the ATC of producing 12,000, 22,000, and 30,000 units. And then for each of these quantities, which choice is the right one, which would be which one has the lowest ATC. So we're going to calculate ATC 9 different times, right? Three times for each of the three choices. So we'll say choice 1, choice 2, and choice 3. And then what we're going to do is see what's the ATC for 12,000 units, 22,000 units, and 30,000 units. And then for each of these three quantities, we'll say, does choice 1 make sense, 2, or 3? So for the first one, it says the fixed cost is 8,000. So that's going to be part of the cost. And just as a reminder, right, ATC is the total cost divided by the total product. And we have the total product value, so we just need to figure out the total cost for each of these. So I have this calculator up for this. So for choice 1, it's 8,000 is the fixed cost, 8,000. And then we're going to add that to $1 times 12,000. So that's just 12,000. So that's 20,000. And then we're going to divide that by 12,000 because we're dividing by the total product. So for choice 1, it's $1.67 for 12,000 units. And actually, I'm going to just stop using thousands because it's a lot. For the next one, so for choice 1, 22,000 units is 8,000 plus 22, which is 30, divided by 22. So 136. And for the last one, it's 8,000 fixed cost plus 30. So 38 divided by 30 is 127. Okay, so if you're thinking here, do we already make the choice? We don't yet, because we don't know like what's the right choice if we're making 12,000 units. So we're going to solve the rest of these, and then we'll be able to make that decision. So for choice 2, the fixed cost is 12,000 plus 75 cents times the units. So 75 cents times 12 is 153. That does not look right. Oh boy. I don't know if this is let's see if my calculator doesn't want to cooperate today. Here we go. There, 9. That makes more sense. I need the parentheses clearly. 21 is the correct cost. Divide by 12,000 units is $1.75. So I learned something today. The calculator doesn't have the parentheses in it. For the next one, right, we're going to do 75 cents. So I'm doing the variable cost first now, just because that parentheses. So the variable cost is 16,500 plus the fixed cost of 12 is 28.5. And we're going to divide by 22 because that's the number of units for $1.30. Okay. And for the last one, it's going to be 30,000 units times 75 cents. Because now we're figuring out the variable cost. And that's 22.5 plus the 12,000 fixed cost is 34.5. And divide by 30. So $1.15. $1.15. And for the third one, right, we've got 24,000 in fixed cost and 25 cents for the variable cost. So 25 cents times 12,000 is 3 plus the fixed cost of 24,000 is 27. Now we're going to divide by the total product of 12,000. So 225. Okay. And for the next one, it's 25 cents times the 22,000. So then plus the fixed cost, which we keep looking is 24,000. Divide by the number of product, 134. And for the last one, we've got 25 cents times 30,000 plus the fixed cost of 24,000 divide by 30,000 units, $1.05. Okay, so now we've solved what's the ATC value for each of these three plant sizes, and basically, which choice results in the lowest average total cost. So if you're thinking about, like, for the 12,000, like if your company is producing 12,000 units, which one of these three choices is the least cost? Well, obviously choice one. For 22,000 though, which one of these is the lowest cost? Well, choice two. And for 30,000, if you're producing that many units, it makes most sense to have choice three. Then it says, so we kind of have just said, here for 12,000, choice one, 22, choice two, so forth. All right, part B says, suppose the firm which has historically produced 12,000 units experiences a sharp permanent increase in demand that leads it to produce 22,000 units. Explain how its ATC changes in the short run and in the long run. So if we were at 12,000 units and this firm is rational, then we went from $1.67, because they used to be there, to now they're still in choice one in the short run, right? So in the short run, they went from $1.67 up to $1.36, right? $1.36 for the ATC value. In the long run, right, if this is a permanent change, then thinking about they would switch, right? They would no longer be producing using choice one. They would say, well, let's go ahead and switch over to choice two. So in the long run, you would go from $1.67 to $1.36 to $1.30, and that's the choice two, right? They would switch to choice two. Then it says, imagine what should the firm do if it believes the change in demand is temporary? It should do nothing. It should stick with choice one. Stay with choice one. Now the reason why, right? Why? Because if they switch to choice two, ATC will go to 175. So in other words, like if they started here at $1.67 and then they went to $1.36 in the short run when the firm went up to 22,000, then they said, okay, we think this is temporary, but we're going to go ahead and build the factory for choice two. Well, they would temporarily go to $1.30, but then when it reverts back to being only 12,000 units demanded, then their ATC would go up to $1.75, which is higher than where they started. So it would be irrational for them to switch to choice two, knowing that the demand, or thinking that the demand change is only temporary. Okay, now we're going to do number two. In each of the following cases, explain whether the firm is likely to experience economies or diseconomies of scale and why. And so for the first one, it says an interior design firm in which the projects are based on the experience of the firm's owner. So for this one, the firm getting significantly larger would actually be diseconomies of scale. And the reason why is because increased output would lead to increased need for, I don't know, I mean, if it's one person doing it, you got to think like, coordinating projects, coordinating and communicating projects with the single owner, right? So because you're kind of dependent on that one single owner, if you overload them, then they're just it's gonna increase costs a lot faster. So it's gonna be diseconomies. B, a diamond mining company. Now, I know that all of you have worked in diamond mining for most of your lives, so you would know this, but diamond mining has really high upfront costs, right? The machinery is very expensive. You have to get rights and property and things. So basically, once they've got the machinery, once they've got it all, producing more output actually would reduce the average total cost, because the total cost, most of it is in fixed costs. Most of it is bought and paid for machinery. So if they can ramp up production, then they'll reduce their ATCs. So we'd say economies because increased output, right, leads to spreading. We can use this spreading effect, right? Spreading of fixed cost over more units. And one way of thinking about that is that the fixed cost is the large part of the total cost. Okay, let's take a look at these tackle the test multiple choice questions. We'll do these. Move this out of the way a little bit. Oops. Number 1 says in the long run, and then all inputs are variable. That is true. So A is going to be the right answer. In the long run, all inputs are variable. Not all, and so I'm just going to look through the rest of these. Some inputs are variable, some are fixed. No inputs would be fixed in the long run. That's the definition of the long run. So, number 2, which of the following is always considered the long run? 1 month, 1 year, 5 year, 10 year? No, none of those. So none of those would be the correct answer, because the long run isn't about time. It's about thinking about, are the inputs fixed or are they variable? 3, which of the following is generally correct? The LRATC is U-shaped. That is generally correct, right? It kind of comes down and goes back up. Diseconomies of scale, or economies of scale, and then diseconomies. The short run average total cost curve is U-shaped. Yes, it is. That's correct. Firms tend to experience economies of scale at low levels and diseconomies of scale at high levels of production. Yeah, that's also true. That's kind of the idea, is that when the firm is small, getting bigger will reduce its ATCs. But as it expands and it gets to a certain size, it'll experience these diseconomies of scale. So all 3 of those, E. Number 4, which of the following costs should be ignored when making decisions? So this was not something that I talked about in the lecture videos, but it's an important kind of addendum to the idea of costs. It's this notion of something called sunk costs. And if you're not familiar with it, I would strongly encourage you just read over these couple of paragraphs where it describes sunk cost. It's the idea of a cost where you've already spent the money, and so you can't recover it, right? And so we should ignore those when we make decisions, even though it's very, very hard to ignore them. But it's like, you've already spent that money, you're never getting it back. The euphemism, or the metaphor being, there's no use crying over spilled milk. So we ignore the costs that we've already spent, and we think about what's going to happen going forward. So D, sunk costs. Number 5, economies of scale will allow which of the following types of cities to lower their ATC of clearing snow by investing in larger snowplow fleets? So thinking about like a city, their total product in this case would be clearing snow. So, if you could expand the amount of total product of clearing snow, then that would reduce the ATC. So we're looking for an option where there's more snow. More people, no. More existing snowplows, no. Less snowfall, that's the opposite. Larger budgets, no. But more snowfall, E, there you go. So that would reduce the ATC of clearing snow if you had more snow. All right, now let's take a look at the last one here, free response number 2. Draw a correctly labeled graph showing a SRATC and the corresponding LRATC. On your graph, identify the areas of economies and diseconomies. So that's pretty straightforward. So here, quantity, price, and we'll just do like SRATC, and they only want us to do one, so, and then kind of come down here, touch tangent, come back up, LRATC, and it only wants economies and diseconomies of scale, so we could just put a line down the middle, that's fine. Economies of scale, and that would be the range where LRATC is going down, and diseconomies of scale, and that's the range where LRATC is going back up. If you watch the lecture video, that where it kind of flattens out, that's like constant returns to scale, but this question doesn't ask for that. So, all right, hopefully that helped you. See you next time.